I'm here today with Jen Tuck, who is a graduate of Rutgers and has worked in pharmaceutical communication. Jen, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for being here. So, can you tell me a little bit about your career and how you ended up here?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been working in the pharmaceutical communications industry for almost 30 years now. I started working out on the PR agency side, worked with Ketchum Public Relations for a number of years in their healthcare practice. And then I made the shift probably about like eight or so years ago, working in in-house pharmaceutical company communications. And yeah, and a typical day of what things look like. I always tell people in PR, you just have to expect the unexpected. Like there is no typical day, and you just have to be ready for whatever's kind of thrown your way. In the agency world, like anything can happen, so it's a really good training ground just to teach you how to be nimble and to just go with the flow. I've done internal communications, I've done external communications. Probably what I have the most experience with in the pharmaceutical healthcare industry is product communications. So teaching people about various therapeutic areas, but then also preparing for big announcements like FDA drug approvals and that sort of thing. When you pop on the news and you see like a new drug was approved, a lot of the work that I've done in the past has been just preparing those announcements, getting those shots of the when you see the drug like going down the line in the factory. Like I've managed that sort of stuff. Also, just writing the press release and the messaging behind that. So a lot of that kind of work is done behind the scenes.
Awesome. So, what got you into more of that like healthcare side of communication in particular? Was it like a particular like class or a role that you got that really piqued your interest?
My major at Rutgers was it was journalism, mass media, and then I also did a double major in Spanish. So one of the things that really steered me towards what I'm doing now is I did an internship during my senior year where I had the ability to work at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital in their public affairs department. And it was such an amazing opportunity. I learned so much about the job, and it really helped prepare me going into my eventual career.
So coming from that journalism background, would you say there are any like transferable skills from journalism that you were able to apply to your role?
Absolutely. I mean, I think with journalism, it's all about learning how to write concisely and getting your point across in as few words as possible. So I think just the writing really translated well to what I do in communications on an everyday basis.
Were there any classes that you took at Rutgers where that you remember to this day? Any
Oh,
professors?
I loved I think it was mass media and politics with Professor Montague Kern. I took two of her classes and she was just phenomenal. And that's actually something I'm still very interested in, just kind of as an aside, like outside of the healthcare world that I work in. But yeah, like she was such a great professor. She actually took one of our smaller classes to Washington, D.C., and she gave us a tour of like all of these different media outlets. And it was just, she was a great professor, and I learned so much in her class.
That's great. And you kind of already touched on the internship a little bit, but was there a single factor or particular experience that you had other than the Robert Wood Johnson internship that really like propelled your career?
I think it was really the internship that got me involved in the healthcare part of communications. I think I learned kind of late into my studies that I maybe didn't want to go into the actual journalism part of it, but I wanted to go more into the public relations end of things. I think that internship kind of helped me to picture in my mind where I wanted to go.
What kind of skills were needed for that internship?
A lot of writing. I remember doing a lot of like media alerts, a lot of media outreach, learning how to build media lists. Back in the, I know now that you can do everything like online, but back in the day, you really had to do your research.
Yeah.
Um, and just building relationships with reporters, I think, was something that I learned during that experience. And we had a lot of great success. I remember we had one event at the hospital, and we wound up getting a reporter from the Associated Press to cover it, and the coverage went everywhere, and it was incredible. So to that day, like, I remember that. And I think having that in my portfolio helped me get my first job at a PR agency, because I just remember like doing the interviews and everybody was like, oh my gosh, like, you got something in the New York Times, you got something in AP,
Wow,
like just from
that's
doing
so
your
cool.
internship. So that was a really cool experience that I had.
That's amazing. And you said something interesting about how like nowadays everything's online and how things have changed. You've been in the industry for around 30 years. So how have things changed since then with the availability of like digital tools and online workspaces and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think building media lists is a lot easier these days than it was back then. We had to go through these huge books and like have to write things down and plug it into spreadsheets. So now everything's online, and updated like every, like 5 minutes. I think the explosion of social media, I mean, it's just been incredible. You have to stay on top of things. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to be willing to learn about what's out there. And my daughter's in college now, and she's teaching. She's a great source of information because she's telling me about platforms I hadn't even heard of. So, but I try really hard to stay abreast of what's going on in social media and what's the latest and greatest out there, and what the trends are looking like.
So in your roles, how do you balance like technical skills and soft skills? Soft skills being more of the people side, managing and managing relationships. Technical skills are maybe things like you might learn on the job.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting into a little more senior roles, definitely a lot more managing people, and just having had a strong background of coming up through the ranks and doing the work. I'm the type of person who's not afraid to jump in there and get my hands dirty, but I also understand being a little more senior roles, you need to be more strategic and have a little bit more of the big picture in mind, as opposed to just looking at tactical elements of a program. So I think that's the thing that I've learned over the past couple of years. And as you're evolving through your career, that's something that I think people just need to be mindful of.
Definitely. And I talk to a lot of people who kind of say similar things about how a lot of times it's like the hard skills are important when you're starting and you're learning your job, but once you advance up your career, it's more about soft skills, I mean, like managing relationships, managing your team.
Yes.
Um, So I think that's really cool that you noted that because it seems to be a pretty common pattern. So what would you say is the biggest obstacle that you've encountered in your career, and how are you able to overcome that?
I think for the longest time I was so scared to fail and or to make a mistake. And I think that really held me back for a long time. And a couple of years ago, I remember having a manager who said to everybody, "You know what? It's okay to make mistakes. Like that's the only way that you're going to learn. And everybody makes mistakes. And it's really in the way that you're dealing with the mistakes and kind of pulling through what you've learned from the situation." So my advice is it's okay to make a mistake. Just, think about how you're going to learn from it. And then, how you're going to fix the mistake. That's obviously a big part of it, but it is okay to make mistakes. It happened. All of us, we all make mistakes.
That definitely resonates with me because I sometimes like psych myself out where if I'm afraid to fail, then I don't try. So that really resonates with me.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
great advice for me. Do you have any other advice to aspiring professionals in healthcare communication?
Yeah, I think this kind of took me a long time to learn, but really embrace trying to get out of your comfort zone, try new things, take new risks, especially if you're just graduating from college or you're just starting out. Like it's okay to take risks, and that's how you learn, and that's how you work your way up the ladder. It's you really just have to break through that comfort zone, and be willing to take a risk.